Rain didn't fall that day. It punished, almost like the sky itself knew the mistake she was about to make. You know what I mean? By the time Sol Alden realized her life was about to break in half, she was already standing under that arch of lavender roses, soaked to the bone, her heart racing for all the wrong reasons. The wedding, supposedly the happiest day of her life, had started without him. The guests were staring, the camera guys fidgeting with their lenses, the music was waiting for the signal. But Phoenix Barlow, the man she'd promised her forever to, was nowhere. 35 minutes late, then 50, then over an hour. By the time Phoenix wandered up to the rooftop garden at the Lexington Hotel, the rain had drowned the linens, washed out half the crowd, and still, he didn't even bother to rush, or apologize, or look her in the eye. Tux all wrinkled, tie half off, eyes bloodshot, and worst of all, that cloud of cologne on his skin. Yeah, that wasn't hers. She looked at him through the veil, feeling the first crack deep in her chest, but she smiled anyway, because everyone was watching, because her aunt had flown in from Louisiana, because the catering bill was already signed. Sometimes heartbreak isn't a knife, it's just a slow drip in front of an audience. The vows happened. Phoenix mumbled his way through. Sol choked hers out past a throat that barely worked, and when the officiant declared them husband and wife, she signed her new name with hands that shook. In the elevator up to the penthouse, he didn't hold her hand, didn't even look up from his phone. She just stared straight ahead, hem of her wedding dress dragging, already ruined. The suite door closed with a heavy click, and for a second, she let herself hope. "We're finally married," she whispered. Phoenix turned to her, voice flat, cold. "You look disgusting today." She blinked. "What?" He got sharper. "Your hips, your face. You're not the woman I proposed to. I married someone I can't even stand to look at." The silence after was so thick it could have drowned her. And then he stepped forward and slapped her. Nothing theatrical, just enough to shatter something deep inside, a part of her that didn't even know could break. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just walked away, locked herself in the bathroom, and stared at the ruined bride in the mirror, cheeks red, eyes swollen, dress stained with everything she wanted to forget. And then the cramps came, sharp, vicious, blood pooled. And suddenly she was on the bathroom floor, cold sweat, shaking, her mouth opening but no sound coming out. She reached for her phone. Phoenix didn't answer. Concierge found her collapsed in the hallway. At the hospital, she refused to give his name, refused to be Mrs. Barlow. The scan revealed a heartbeat. Then 2, 6 weeks pregnant, twins. She lay on that bed, monitors beeping, nurses passing, betrayal heavy in her chest, and made a vow that nobody else heard. She'd raise those babies alone. She wouldn't be anyone's regret. When she was finally discharged, Sol walked 14 blocks through Manhattan in her ruined wedding dress, coat flapping behind her, breath fogging in the morning air. No one stopped her, no one cared. But that was the beginning, not the end. Phoenix was gone when she returned. His luggage vanished, only a wrinkled tie left hanging over the chair. She flushed her wedding ring, changed her name back to Alden, blocked his number, and disappeared from his world with a silence that cut deeper than any scream. The descent was slow, relentless. Prenatal vitamins, doctor visits alone, the Midtown lease broken for a tiny one-bedroom in Queens, her freelance design jobs barely covering rent. First ultrasound photos went into a shoebox under the bed, too painful to look at. Phoenix, meanwhile, was back in clubs and fancy parties, his life untouched. Hers was all morning nausea, 2 heartbeats, hope mixed with dread. 6 months later, Sol gave birth alone in Brooklyn General. Nova, silent and wide-eyed. Luna, loud and pink. She whispered promises to them, promises she'd have to figure out how to keep. Life became survival. Her days started before dawn, sketching for clients, making breakfast from scraps, hustling every hour, boutique shifts, waitressing, design gigs. She lost touch with friends, but her love for Nova and Luna never wavered. Questions came, innocently sharp. Are daddies supposed to forget? Sol crouched beside her daughter, voice steady. Some daddies forget. The best ones, they choose you. But every question stung. she found small moments of grace. An elderly tailor, Mrs. Delacqua, who paid her in cash and motherly advice, who said, "You keep your fire, child. One day it'll burn through the sky." On nights when the electricity was cut, she turned it into camping adventures for the girls, hiding overdue bills and hunger behind stories and shadow puppets. But those quiet questions never stopped. Why don't we have a daddy? Because you have me. And each other. That's enough. The years passed in grit and little victories. One day, while waiting tables at a fancy rooftop gala, Sol spilled champagne on a sharply dressed man. Soren Vale, tech mogul, philanthropist, and, as fate would have it, the first person in years to see her, not just her struggle. He asked for coffee, and somehow she said yes. Their story wasn't a rescue. It was recognition, a slow building of trust, of showing up, of folding into each other's lives, learning how to dream again. Soren became her steady presence, never overstepping, never rushing. He braided hair he didn't help grow, learned Luna's favorite cartoons, Nova's quiet needs, brought groceries, and listened, really listened. The girls loved him for his pancakes and his patience. When Phoenix reappeared, threatening custody, it was Soren who stood by her side, assembling a legal team, fighting not for pride, but for the right to keep the life they'd built safe. The custody battle was brutal, public. Phoenix's lawyers painted him as the wronged father, but when the judge asked him simple questions, what are their favorite colors? Who's their pediatrician? He had no answers. The girls spoke for themselves. Soren makes pancakes shaped like stars. He reads in silly voices. He tucks us in. The judge awarded Sol full custody, with a nod to Soren's role as a true father. They married quietly on a vineyard at sunset. No one gave Sol away. She walked herself down the aisle, daughters at her side, Soren waiting with hands steady. Their vows weren't about rescue, but about choosing each other every day. The celebration was family, laughter, plates piled with food that tasted like home. Their wedding night was tender, not urgent, two people healing together, learning that joy wasn't just survival, but permission to feel whole again. Maison Alden was born from that fire, her boutique in Brooklyn, filled with hand-sewn clothes and memories. She launched her first collection, pieces named after the women who'd helped her fight. Nova and Luna handed out programs. Soren held Sol, their baby boy, and watched with pride. Customers came not just to buy, but to witness survival become art. She wrote a book, Not Broken, Becoming, for her children, for herself, for anyone who'd ever needed to start over. Years later, standing in her flagship store, a little girl handed her the book to sign. "You are never ruined, only rising," she wrote. Through the window, her children danced, laughter echoing on the sidewalk, and Sol Alden, no longer the girl in the rain, but a woman who owned her story. New peace wasn't the absence of pain. It was power, joy, earned and unashamed. So, if this story moved you, please hit like, leave a comment below. Would you have forgiven Phoenix or built your own empire like Sol? Share your truth. Your voice matters here. Subscribe to hear more stories of resilience and real love, because scars aren't signs of failure. They're proof you survived. Until next time, keep rising.